Mr. Zees Apple Factory. Written and illustrated by Bettina Elias Siegel. Narrated by Rachel Buckman.
Down in the orchard, under the moon's ivory beams, trees full of apples were enjoying their dreams. Some dreamt of pies or being eaten for snack. Others of riding to school in a sack. Some mused on cobblers or being tucked in a tart. But most dreamt of Cooper, the boy nearest their heart. From Cooper's dad's store, only the best fruit was sold. And Cooper knew fruit like a jeweler knows gold. Somehow he sensed which melons were sweet, which kiwis were juicy, which peaches to eat. In velvet-lined crates he nestled their wares, his own special way to show them he cared. He kept them cozy in winter and cool in the heat, and sometimes he spritzed them just for a treat. And once they became a shopper's selection, he always bestowed a last bit of affection. He'd polish each fruit with a soft flannel rag, then place it gently in a brown paper bag.
Goodbye, little fruit.
He'd whisper in song.
Help kids like me grow healthy and strong.
Back in the orchard, the apples would sigh.
Maybe we'll be the ones to catch Cooper's eye.
But when the harvesters came into sight, the apples detected that all wasn't right. For one thing, they came under cover of night. As the workers drew near, the apples grew wary. For unlike kind Cooper, these people seemed scary. The pickers were rude, their handling rough, the harvester's boss unpleasant and gruff.
Get 'em onto the trucks, we don't have all night. Z wants his apples before morning light.
But where's our friend Cooper? And who's this man Z?
The apples were frightened and feeling at sea. Soon they were landing in trucks with a thud. Ones that had fallen were left in the mud. Then the trucks reached their last destination, a dark, gloomy factory in a deserted location. And from a side door emerged a pinched little soul, with white hair askew and eyes black as coal.
Ah,
Mr. Z cackled.
most excellent work.
The foreman responded with a satisfied smirk.
Bring them inside and do not delay, for I'm eager to get my plan under way.
You see, Mr. Z was a greedy old man, and to pile up more money, he'd come up with a plan.
Apples are fine, but they can always be bettered. They just need the help of a mind that's unfettered. I've hired the best chemists found in the land, and together we'll meet every consumer demand. With test tubes and beakers, we've developed a taste unlike anything out there, yet still apple-based. It's salty yet sweet, crunchy and tender. Take one bite and you'll go on a bender. Each nibble will lead you to have just one more, and soon no one will shop at young Cooper's store.
The apples were offloaded onto a ramp, and each one was placed in a cold metal clamp. The ramp slowly moved toward a big plastic screen, behind which lay waiting a most fearsome machine. The helpless red apples were soon crammed within, their shouting lost in the deafening din. There was slicing and dicing and squishing and squashing, peeling, annealing, swishing and sloshing, compacting, extracting, and even redacting. The adding of some things, and others subtracting. The apples were processed in every which way. Were they even still apples at the end of the day?
Well,
Shrugged Mr. Z.
who really can say?
When the process was over and the machines stopped hissing, they still weren't finished, for something was missing.
This product needs color.
The chief chemist said,
I suppose you'll be wanting the usual red.
but thinking ahead to his mountain of gold, Mr. Z opted for modern and bold.
Red for an apple? What a boring selection! What I'm aiming for is fluorescent perfection.
So he mixed up a vat of bright purple and blue.
In all of nature,
He cackled.
you won't find such a hue. And now for a name to convey glamour and glitz. I think I shall call them Zees Apple Bits. I'll send out the word on TV and on signs. Soon every consumer will heed my designs.
Regular apples aren't satisfactory until they emerge from Mr. Zee's factory. We turn fruit into fruit even better than real. Let our blue and our purple brighten your meal. Mr. Zee's Apple Bits.
If your food looks like food, you're lost in the past. New food is dazzling, every mouthful a blast. Apple Bits are apples just taken to the max. Bite-sized smooth morsels in easy open packs.
Hey kids! Eating fresh apples is sadly old school, but new Apple Bits are totally cool. If you want to be popular, ever da bomb, demand Apple Bits from your dad or mom.
Well, it didn't take long for his plan to take root. Within weeks, the town had stopped eating fruit. Children in stores annoyed their poor mothers. They wanted Zee's products and wouldn't try others. Then adults had to know what the fuss was about, and before very long, Mr. Z was sold out.
Why stop at apples?
Thought old Mr. Z.
They'll buy all I can make, that I can see. Why not potatoes and even red meat? There's nothing that can't be a chemical treat.
Whatever Z made became the town's passion. If not from his boxes, it wasn't in fashion. If you could eat purple gompers, why eat a grape? Who wouldn't trade chicken for an alphabet shape? Bananas were boring when pulled from a bunch, but much more exciting when fried to a crunch. Carrots too orange, their texture too tough? Much better to eat them as a carroty puff. From Mr. Z's factory, no food was immune, and of course for old Z, it was all a great boon. Meanwhile, at Cooper's, the store was too quiet, with fresh fruit no longer in the town's diet. Just as Z planned, he grew fantastically wealthy. But maybe, just maybe, the town grew less healthy. It started out slowly, at first undetected, but over time the townsfolk felt quite dejected. The children were cranky, always tired and draggy, and some of them noticed their bellies were saggy. They no longer wanted to run, jump, or play, preferring instead to lie round the whole day. And parents, too, were now feeling glum. They couldn't believe how slack they'd become. When Cooper saw the harm, he could stand it no longer. He was, after all, a junior fruitmonger. He marched to the factory, mouth set in a line, to give greedy old Z a piece of his mind.
"Listen here, Mr. Z,"
said irate young Cooper.
"your junk food is putting this town in a stupor. I've looked on in silence, but I'm hardly obtuse, and what you're committing is produce abuse."
Oh, what's the harm?
Asked Z with a snort.
I'm still selling them food, at least of a sort. Just look around and surely you'll see the townspeople want to buy only from me. If it's not from my factory, it just won't be eaten. So go away, little Cooper, and admit you've been beaten.
Cooper was saddened, but he wasn't brought down. Instead, he set out toward the center of town. He found a large box and stood on it proudly, and then with a bullhorn he shouted out loudly.
"Listen up, people. Please hear what I say. Mr. Z has tricked you into losing your way. Your body's a machine, just as much as a car, and a car with bad fuel won't get very far. The foods of the earth are what we should eat, veggies and fruits, whole grains and good meat. Those are the foods that nourish the best, not the Crispies and Doodahs and Bits and the rest. There's nothing more lovely than fruit that is ripe, but Mr. Z's products are a whole other type. They're not really food, they're industrial feats, so eat them less often, or else just as treats. Here is an apple in a state that is pure, for all that now ails you, this is the cure."
But people hadn't seen fruit in so long, something about it seemed a bit wrong. With no box or label, it was unrecognizable. To actually eat it seemed inadvisable. Then a brave little girl stepped up to the plate, and the others all watched as she slowly ate.
Hey,
Said the girl after a moment of thought.
this fruit is delicious. I like it a lot. It's juicy and crunchy and wonderfully sweet. How come we don't have these as a treat?
And as soon as the girl's wise words were spoken, it seemed in a way that a spell had been broken. From that day on, they ate foods that were whole, finding them best for both body and soul. Factory foods were okay on occasion, but no longer part of the daily equation. And once the truth was fully disclosed, Mr. Z's factory had to be closed. Back in the orchard, there was great jubilation, with Cooper the object of much admiration. The sudden departure of old Mr. Z meant apples were apples, and free just to be. With nothing to fear now, they were left to their dreams, again sleeping soundly in the moon's ivory beams.
The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is by far the biggest funder of work on childhood obesity, and it's now spending $100 million a year on the problem. The food industry spends that much every year by January 4th to market unhealthy food to children. Each year, the food and beverage industry spends almost $2 billion to market mostly unhealthy products to our kids. Children lack the intellectual ability to think critically about advertising, making them easy targets for marketers. I created this story to help young kids become a little savvier about the media messages they encounter and to get them thinking about healthful eating. If you like my story and its message, please share it, and thanks for watching.